Okay, a very good afternoon to all the students. Okay, I share again. Okay, the attendance link is shared here. Okay, please remind your friends to sign it in. Okay, make sure you fill it in. Oh, for these afternoon sessions, yeah, I'm going to talk about daylighting simulations as well as the to demonstrate a very quick one, the simulation software, which is the Velux, for you guys to follow through. But for sure, other than this Velux, if you know others of the software, you can use it as well for your project. I'm sure that you have learned about the technical tools that after you have visited the lab itself, okay, then this will be one of the options that you can apply for your project later. Okay, yeah. Without further ado, let me share my screens. Okay, first of all, this is a topic that I'm going to talk about, which is the architecture daylighting strategies and performance in the tropical climates. Okay, my name is Leng Bao Chung, or you can call me Dr. PC. In this case, for the daylighting wise, okay, out of all, I'm sure that you guys have came across with the others general factors, for example, the ventilation, daylighting, acoustic, okay, thermal comfort, thermal performance, and many more. So today's focus will be on the daylight opportunities or the daylighting components. That is one of our focus for our design studios, especially when you come to your building designs. Okay, so what is the daylight opportunity that as means here? It means that with the daylight design, you can improve the energy efficiency. Usually, when we talk about building energy efficiency, straight away comes to our mind is about daylighting first, or ventilations will come later. Why? Because in Malaysia, especially, we are being gifted, okay, abundance of the daylighting. Okay, start from maybe around 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning until even during the 6:30 p.m. You'll get all the free daylight, okay, to lit up your environment for you to carry out your works. So that's what we are being gifted. So please treasure these opportunities as well as the daylightings, uh, the 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 daylighting opportunity that gifted by the gods, okay, the creators to us. So you can find in Malaysia we have quite a numbers of the um rating tools, green rating tools that will usually applying the will emphasizing the daylight factors, okay, which is one of the important criteria when you comes to your designs later. Ventilation, yeah, is important, okay, and we are not denying that, okay, like energy efficiency in terms of the ventilations, okay, sometimes you can use the fans, okay, air conditionings, okay, and many more that could make you feel better in terms of the thermal comfort wise. But involving complicated or many comprehensive kinds of the operations or mechanism. Daylighting is more straightforward as well as it is more easy to get in. Okay, when we are in our building itself. So it's a critical design factors that concern about the global warming, carbon emissions, and sustainable design in addition to visual comfort. So we have found out the daylight to be the important factors, the aspect for our, not only for our activities, behaviors, health, and even on our productivity. So where we get our daylight from in the building itself? Straight away we will think about the window. So window emitting the daylight is actually giving the importance of factors when we comes to our harvesting of the daylighting here. Okay, so according to the Quay 2018, you can see that the useful daylight here Okay, the recommended one is only about 100 lux. Okay, at most is 2000 lux, but that will be much more higher compared to the one that we really need. So direct sunlight, you can imagine, usually is around more than 100,000 lux itself. So when we compare itself, we can see that the percentage that we really need if we compare from the outdoor is really small. Is I think the most will be less than 3.5, okay, or 4% itself. Okay, so doesn't mean the higher percentage of the daylight factor is the better. Okay, so we have a standards for you to guide you uh, in order for you to get the optimum daylight in our case. Hence, I will going to proceed this and talk more about this about the three parameters for the lighting, daylighting. And for the daylighting, is cool and free. Okay, why? Cool daylighting and through out of all the luminous that we have get from the markets wise, okay, it having a high efficiency or high efficacies in this case, lumen per watt meter. You can see it's around 200 or luminance per watt compared to the LED. Yeah, LED will giving you a high brightness, but cool daylight is sufficient for use already. Okay, so compared to other lighting lah. This you can see from the Mount Science Bangunan level 3B11. So there is boxes that comes with all the different types of the lighting. Okay, so if you are interested, you can have a look at the B11 lab. Okay, and in order to find out how's the performance of each light will be look like. Okay, in terms of the fluorescent, the LED, direct light, and so forth. Okay, so that can be found in the lab itself. So benefits of daylight. Okay, yeah. As usual, I think everyone knows that why we need a healthy lifestyle, right? So daylight is one of the major components. With the good daylight, is giving us a better sleep. Okay, lower our blood pressures. Okay, decrease the risk of getting obesities and diabetic. Okay, yeah, it's indirectly or for sure. Yeah, you need to have enough or sufficient exercise in this case. Like for example, imagine those living in the prisons or they bring prisons itself. They are living under the stress because they don't really have windows in the cell itself. Okay, the prison cells. So that will lead to the sickness. Okay, the stress is really one type of the way that they're controlling the prisoners itself. That's why you can see that why daylight is very important here. You need daylight. Okay, you need good views. All of them are through the window. So in your design, don't try to ever cut down the numbers of the windows itself. Okay, but you have to balance up in terms of the heat gains as well as the views as well as the direct daylight that you get, okay, for the natural environment here. So we have UVL saying so. In terms of the daylightings wise, okay, for typical rooms at least how many percent? 10%, right? Okay, of the total floor areas. For the operational or operable windows that can be opened, it has to be at least 5% of the total window that you have. So that is a basic guideline that is given by the UBBL. So with that, you can expand more in order to optimizing. It's not just fulfilling about the minimum requirements only. Okay, the rest of it, I think I'm not going to expand this. You can see that the advantages are if we're having some good daylight, with good windows in the hospital, okay, even the working environment, it will give us a better kinds of the percentage of recoveries as well as the efficiency. Okay, so daylighting performance in the tropical climate. Okay, so introductions. In order for you to get in the daylight, you must know these two things, which is the solar azimuth angles as well as the altitude angles. Okay, what is the azimuth angles of the sun? So you can see from the photos, is the angles in between the true north, okay, as well as the directions of the sun measured clockwise from the north. It has to be started from the north itself, which means it's our x-axis here. So for the solar altitude angles, it determines the length of the shadow cast by the solid object. And it's given the vertical angles, okay, over here, y-axis, between the sun and the horizon of the given latitude. So these two aspects is the important aspect when you're studying about the daylighting. Okay, for the daylighting, basically we have two types of the radiation in general, but for sure there are more like reflected light and so forth. But you can know that diffuse light and direct radiations is basically coming directly from the sun after attenuations through the atmosphere. Okay, means that wherever that you see the sunbeam from the outdoor environment, it will cause you to the visual discomfort. Okay, then you cannot directly look at sunbeam itself. So that is so-called the direct radiation, which will cause the heat gain directly to your indoor environment. Diffuse light is better. We encourage and we really need the diffuse light or diffuse radiation because it's reflected from the entire sky except the direct radiation from the ground that reflected the diffuse radiation. Means that whatever that is being diffusing through the atmospheres, okay, layers from through the skies itself, then it reflected back to your environment. That is so-called the diffuse light. We need that, okay, for us to carry out our activity. Okay. So remember, daylight building is composed of a mixed direct sunlight, which is the diffuse skylight as well as the light reflected from the ground. There are three elements here, okay, in our daily environment. It's not only just the sunlight. So we said that we need skylight when it passes through the clouds, okay, or atmosphere, and it's being penetrated through the clouds and going into our building. We get the free skylight, and those we reflected to the adjacent buildings is so-called a reflected light. Light is from the sun is intense and directional. That's why we call a sunbeam. It's directly you can see it's like as if there is a uh the beams or some kinds of the figures which you could see when especially when you are in the room itself, you are sitting inside the room, you can see the direct sunlight that penetrate through. Light from the sky is soft and diffuse because it's being reflected and it has been filtered. That's why it's soft and diffuse. You can just see the light, but you cannot see the beam itself. The light reflected from the ground can often account for 15% or more of the total daylight reaching the building facade. Okay, so that will be partially that happens around us that we cannot avoid sometimes. Okay, that will be taken into the consideration as well. So for this semester, since you have to come up with your experiments or maybe in terms of your simulations or regardless which one is that, you have to tabulating it up, quantifying it. Okay, so if you are doing the field measurements, if you are doing the simulations, so these are the three parameters that you have to remember and knows what is the differences in between them. Okay, the first one will be daylight factors. Okay, you can see the diagram. There's external and internal. So when you need to calculate and come out tabulating your lux, okay, the lumens per meter squares, okay, of the lighting, which is the ratios in between the external and the internal lux itself. Okay, you need this. You need both of these values itself. Only you can get the percentage. Okay, so this is the daylight factors. It's more on the ratio. And illuminance is lux. That whatever that is received by the surface of the environment, okay, then we can measure it with the lux meter. Then let's call illuminance. And whichever that has been reflected, illuminance, right, the lights, okay, have reaching the surface and if reflected back, it's called the luminance. And the parameters of the unit is called candela per meter square. Okay, so you have to differentiate the what is illuminance and luminance. So for the luminance wise, with different types of the surface are going to give you the different result. Okay, that's why usually this one we're going to look at the perspective. For illuminance, we usually look at the plan. Okay, what plan illuminance? WPI. You have to remember this, as well as the daylight factor. The plan itself is very important. And the plan is not zero. It's not on the surface of your floor. It's actually on the top of your table, which is around 750 mm or 800 mm. So when you set the simulations WPI, what plan illuminance later, you have to set your WPI, your simulated plan level, as at least 750 mm from the floor level. Okay, it's not floor, it's not zero level, it's not 0 mm, but it's 750 or 800 or 850 mm. Depends on the tables of your simulated space later. Okay, in another explanations here, luminous flux, lumens. Okay, this is what you have received from the outputs from the lights, and the luminous intensities, which is candelas. Okay, is will be received when you gets the light, the brightness, the intensity from the light itself, and when it's reaching the surface, it will becomes illuminance. That's what we call lux. That's why your lux meter, you have to put it on the table, because you want to know that how much of the lighting that you receive from the particular surface of the table. Okay, that is so called lux. Okay, if it's being reflected to the environments that perceived by you, that is so called luminance. Okay, after it's leaving the permukaan, the surface of your table, is called luminance. Okay, so have to remember this. So luminance is equivalent to this one, the reflected illuminance plus reflection. Okay, that's why it's called in brief, you can call reflections, the values after we know the illuminance, okay, from the light itself. So for the illuminance, the measurements of the amounts of light received on the surface, okay, is so-called lux. You use this lux meter. You have a sensors at the top of it. So wherever that you place it, okay, you can put it on the table, you can put it on the floor. Anyway, you will know that the amounts of the light that received by these meters itself. If you put on the floor, you put on the tables, you will having a slightly different result, because the far further away it is from the light sources, it will be a little bit different. Okay, so you have to measure the place, the surface that you measure, okay, is the one that intended to go for. Okay, so direct sunlight will be have 100,000 lux. Diffuse skylight will be 3,000 to 18,000. Okay, it's much lesser compared to the direct sunlight. That's why it's more comfortable and suitable for us to carry out our activities here. So minimum levels for the tasks and activities for the residential rooms will be around 200 to 500 lux. While for the classrooms, like general usage will be 300 to 500. And for the working space lighting will be 200 to 500. Okay, so why we having a range here? Okay, like for example, 200 probably will be your corridor. You not really walk at the corridor, right? You're not really writing at your corridor, right? That's why you don't need to have that high amounts of the lighting, the lux itself. So, but while for your reading, okay, you need higher, because you read books, you need it to be clearer. That's why 500 lux is actually the max. Okay, if you are doing computer tasks, I think around 300, I think, or maybe 350, 400 will be enough, because your computer or laptops will giving lights right from the screen itself. That's why the range of 300 to 500 is considered acceptable. Okay, so this you have to remember, because when you do the simulation, it is useful for you guys. So luminance, the measurements of the amounts of light reflected or emitted, reflected from the surface. Luminance, okay, without the eye, so it becomes the reflected. Okay, so these are the typical luminous values for the different skies itself. Like as you can see here, usually if you want to simulating the glaze, okay, or even the values of the luminous values of your materials used. Let's say you want to wrap up your rooms with aluminiums, or you want to paint it just with the typical white pans. Okay, well, giving a totally different values. Okay, even though you remains the window untouched, but just the change of the material, it will giving you a different result. As you can see, we having the timber planks, or maybe the timber floorings. Okay, we're having the white colors of the wall, and we're having a glasses here. So each of the results plotted here will be different, okay, based on the luminance, because the reflected values of the materials is different. Okay, so these are the same thing. So remember, I keep reminding by using the different types of the pictures lah. Okay, first back to the daylight factors. So in order for you to understand the daylight factors, look at the words that I highlight. How much daylight falls on the surface in a building? It's a ratio. Okay, and the daylight factor function as a metric either for the measurings or predicting the daylighting presence in the building. Whether you can find out the daylight is there or not in the building or not, you use daylight factor to measure it. So it's defining as a ratios of illuminance. The basic unit is still lux. It's not luminance, it's not candela per meter square, but in order for you to measure the daylight factor, you must have the outdoor and the indoor lux, indoor illuminance, okay, under overcast sky. Okay, for daylight factor, you no need to measure every single days. You just have to measure once under this certain fixed scenario. For example, overcast sky. Okay, we have the different type of sky. We have clear sky without any clouds. Overcast skies means that we have a excessive lighting, okay, from the sun itself. Then we have for example, like the intermediates. What we have here is actually in Malaysia is intermediate sky, because in the intermediate skies is usually giving us we have the balanced numbers of the clouds as well as the clear skies, okay, in the typical days. Okay, that's the scenarios or the skies that we have in Malaysia. Overcast sky is the worst case scenario that I can say. So why we use worst case scenario? Usually in the simulation, we will always base on the worst case. Okay, because only you knows about the worst case, you could have yourself a better environment under the normal and typical day, right? So for temperature, thermal comfort, thermal performance, we will always look into the worst case scenario first. Then you use that outdoor environment to simulate your indoor environment. Okay. So daylight factor can be quickly employed to a size window during the schematic designing and evaluating the design suggestion at the end of schematic designing. Okay, with this, you will know that whether the amounts of the window, the size of the window that you have designed and provide will be sufficient, too much, okay, or not. Okay, so you can fine tuning your building proposal based on the daylight factors result. So this is what MS1525, okay, the standards that you have to refer, okay, for you to conducting and benchmarking your result that you got, okay, from the studies, the simulation. Without knowing all these things, you won't knowing that whether my result that I obtain will be good or not. You need a benchmark, which is from MS1525. All right. So how much a surface being illuminated by the incident light is measured by the illuminance. Okay. So daylight factors is illuminance on, okay, the working plans usually is 0.8 above the floor, divided by the horizontal plane that you get from the unobstructed sky. Okay, this is how the formula formed together with the diagrams. So remember this, it will be useful for you to run your simulations later. So representations of the daylight factor in an building drawing. So you can use that not only to predict or to evaluate the daylight presence with the proposed building, but also describe how much the light illuminations that will reaching the building itself. So visually, we have the two basic representational devices, which is the isolux contour. This one is so-called the isolux contour. So in the Velux software later, you can choose this one or you can choose this one. Daylight factor profile is only giving the white and black or gray colors profile. So it's giving you a more closer kinds of the views to the real scenarios here. That's why that's called the daylight factor profile. You want to know that the coverage of the certain range of the illuminance, you can use this isolux diagram. Okay, so daylight thing design series. Okay, in general, before you go into your design, you have to consider all this. A varieties of the strategies are available to control and enhancing the daylighting. What are they? Regions, different regions. So in Arab Saudi, in Malaysia, you will have totally different approaches or strategies that you have to design, because you have to consider about the azimuth as well as the latitude, attitudes, altitudes of the sunlight, right? Okay, and in the other one is about the sun path. So usually when you're doing your site analysis, we want you to come up with your sun path for you to know about the sun angles, okay, as well as the sun's its position. Okay, so site design, yeah, compositions of the site, orient or orientations, the measures of the glazing north-south with the secondary glazing, minimizing the east-west window if necessary. So maximizing wherever that you have, best your important space, like for example, the classroom or the offices, that the space that you need to sit for there for longer hours on, trying to make it on the north and at the south, and not trying to put those like services, back of house, okay, the those toilet at the west side, staircase, okay, then it will help you to plan as well as optimizing your designs later. Okay, so building plan form and will be one of it. How you plan a form, either you come with several block, then several block itself you can make it into a courtyard, right? So that will be on one of the strategy how you make your form. Illuminate the ceiling as much as possible. Okay, your ceiling, unless you want to do a cafe lah, that one will be different story. If you designing for classroom offices, we encourage you, advise you to go for bright or white colors kinds of the ceiling. Okay, in order to reflecting, allow it to be reflecting more daylight here, and protect against the direct sunlight. We don't want direct sunlight. That is not useful for us because it's going to cause the heat. Okay, so that is not welcome. Unless you are doing solar chimney, then you need sunlight. So don't ever you should don't ever say, oh, I want to induce or I want to attract or allow more sunlight to penetrate into my building. Don't say so. Not sunlight. Okay, we want more diffuse light or skylight, or in general we call it daylighting. So balance light from the windows wall with reflected daylight on the opposite wall. Okay, so you have to balance both sides of it, and this could be resolved through the skylight. Okay, you can through atriums. Skylight seldom be used here unless you are doing the semi-open spaces. Usually we use the atrium. Okay, atriums will allows you to lit up the internal spaces, especially you having the center rows, or like for example the concourse area. Okay, that will be useful. So either we go for the side lit or the top lit window. Okay, the other one, I think this one I just quickly go through. You know that in daylighting in the tropical region, so usually we use shade to prevent the transmission to the sunlight. Roof, for low rise, roof is critical. So if you are designing a low rise or mid low rise, okay, you have to design a good roof, like an umbrella, to make sure you are free from the direct sunlight. We don't want the direct sunlight to go into our building, okay, because it's going to give you or generate a lot of heat here. Then your aircon will be expensive lah. So roof itself, trying to make it the huge overhang, okay, or you have a double roof, okay, in this case, so in order to preventing the brightness from the exterior surface that reflect the sunlight. So for the arid and regions and the hot dry, usually you see that they're having the courtyard at the center, because what they want is actually the diffuse light as well as the reflected light, but not the direct light. Okay, so with the courtyard itself, when the sun penetrate through into the environment, it will reflecting their courtyard wall, which will lead out the interior. In front, usually they're having a small window that facing the outwards, the exteriors of the building, because they want to minimizing the direct sunlight from the side. Okay, and in the same time, they will having the kinds of the inviting unnecessary, like for example, maybe insects or maybe some kinds of the sandstorms, okay, and many more. That's why their window have to be small. So in Malaysia, we are the other way around. We need a big windows for cross ventilation to happen, and we need a high roof, double roof, or huge overhang, okay, in order for us to get in the better lighting. Building orientation, just like I mentioned, south is desirable because direct sunlight radiation received by the solar, the south, the side is easier to control and to prevent the excessive or extra solar gain here. And daylight that we get from the south is uniform. Wouldn't be too bright, wouldn't be too excessive, or intensity won't be that high. It's uniform. So it's easier for you to control and designing your space there. So trying to place your useful space at the south, or if you can't make it at the south, try to make it at the north. It's best for the daylighting because it's not direct and constant diffuse. It's also the uniform and soft lighting. For the east and the west, it's very low, almost horizontal, which means same level as your eye level, which will cause the discomfort. So usually we try not to having some big windows, openings towards the east or the west itself. If you want, you can try to tilt it or add tilts the angles of the windows. Probably it's not directly perpendicular to the outdoor environment, but maybe you can set it as a side, or you can do a punch window itself. So it will reducing the impact of the discomfort itself. Okay, so you can see a direct sunlight from the south window at the noon. Okay, will be highest. Okay, at nearest to the window itself, it will be high. Okay, then when slowly going in, it will be lowest itself. So for the indirect sunlight at the north window at the noon, it's quite uniform. As you can see, it's almost like a straight line here. Okay, so these are some strategies for you to design the form and massing. Okay, so assessing the obstructions using the vertical angles of the skies itself. So there are two criteria. One to having your adjacent building, your neighbor. Okay, height and the depth itself from the sun, and I mean in terms of the windows as well as the distance from the wall itself does matter. So if the distance of the window to the adjacent building is high, okay, D to H itself, D is higher, okay, the conventional window design is adequate, is enough already, okay. If this is bigger than H itself, the more higher the adjacent building is, it will cause the lower ratios of it. So in that case, you need larger window, or maybe if it is lower than that, for example, you imagine D is smaller than H, means that the building is very close together with your, very close from your jiran, your neighbors. Then you almost impossible for you to get lighting. It's not being reflected. Okay, this is going to cause a dark alley even in the morning. Okay, then probably in this case you might need to supplies or install the light shelves or other things. Okay, the some kinds of the um, daylight assisted tools, okay, for you to lit out the interiors itself. Okay, so that's why in Malaysia we have setback. That's why setback is very important. Make sure your buildings you have a certain sufficient gap, especially those sites in the urban area. Yeah, you need to have a sufficient gap for you to get in the daylighting. Okay, then the other one is the interior surfaces brightness. You can see here, imagine your surface from here is low, 39%, and this is high. Okay, so the task illuminance for the building or the interiors with all, I mean, the ceiling, white wall, white floor itself is much more higher compared to the dark ceiling itself. So if you painted your ceiling dark, then your task illuminance that you get percentage is very low, which is 39% compared to others. Okay, why? Because all the lights will be reflected through your, coming from your window, reflected through your ceiling and deceived by you. That's why ceiling plays an important role here. Unless you are designing for cafe, that one will be different story. So daylight strategies, shading devices. Okay, shading devices is not only just like you putting all the the louvers outside. So you can integrating it with your light shaft as well in order for you to gain more daylighting in your deep plans. Okay, how to minimizing the solar heat gain? Now, just now we mentioned we need more light, we need more light, we need more light. But now, if you inducing or you're trying to get in or obtain too many lights into your building, you need to cut it down. So the first rule is to avoid the direct sunlight. Try to avoid it. Then the second one, to make use of the glazing technology. This is considered like you need to spend more lah, because in this case you need to purposely go and buy the double glazing, okay, IGUs, external blinds, and so forth. Okay, so what you can do here is trying to design your form, okay, in order to minimizing the direct sunbeam. Okay, if really can't avoid, so you can consider about the external blinds and internal blinds. So these are the classics daylight harvesting. So you can see that this guy, this person, he has put in the light shaft, which you can it could be act as the sun shading devices, but in the same time, it also act as the reflectors into the interiors of the building. So daylight factors, remember the one that I mentioned? You see, it will be at the peak, which is higher at 1.0%. Okay, when it comes to around 3 meter from the window itself, if you applying the light shaft. Okay, if you don't have this, you only have a window, so the one daylight factor with 1 or maybe 3.5 will be around this, which is closer to the window. So the advantages of having the light shaft itself is actually allows you to have a deep plans, okay, but in the same time it's still having the sufficient and useful daylight that you can use for the interiors itself. So other than that, there will be some of the examples that you can use for other than designing for the shading devices. You can also play or experimenting with the ceiling. Okay. So the higher the window, the deeper the daylight zone it is. Okay. The practical depth of the daylight zone is around 1.5 to 2 times of the window head height as shown here. Okay, this is D. The one that's starting from the top of your windows until the floor will be depth, the D itself. So the higher is, the higher of the daylight zone that you have. Okay, some of your friends or architect, they like to do the double volume, which means it will get more daylighting in this case, because it will still based on the 1.5 to 2.0 depth based on the height of the window that you have. And if the corridor is beyond this zone and separated with a partially glazed wall, you can adequately lead with the spill light from the rooms. Okay, that's why just now I say we're not doing our works, like for example writing or reading on the corridor. You just need some lights, the spill light, to come from filtered from the main daylighted zone, okay, in order for you to walk, to recognizing and get the way right. With standard window and ceiling height between 9 to 10 feet, okay, or around 3 meter, the plan on adequate or sufficient daylight within 20 feet, which is around 6.1 meter from the window itself. Okay, so you can use these rules of thumb even before you do your simulation. Simulation is allow us to get a more accurate and a better the result for us to foresee whether the space that we design is functional or not. Okay, but before that, you can use the rules of thumb first, or else you have no way to start from. You're not sure where and how are you going to start in order for you to get a good result for your daylighting later. Then the other one, we have two types of window here. One is the strip window that provide more uniform daylight. Okay, the easiest way to provide the sufficient and enough daylight is with nearly continuous strips window like this one. Okay, so if punch window is okay, this is punch window. Doesn't mean it's not okay, it's acceptable, but it will creating the contrast of the light and the dark area. Okay, like for example, this will be very bright, but suddenly this becomes dark, then this suddenly become very bright, so it will somehow cause a little bit of the discomfort, but it's still based on your activities. Okay, like let's say you want to have a galleries, or maybe you have artifacts to display, so the punch window probably will giving you a better result here. So one of our earliest green building in Malaysia that we get since the earliest of 2 decades before is Geo building, or now it's being called MGTC building. Okay, it's one of the benchmark lah, or some kinds of our precedent studies. We want to know about daylighting. You see that how's the office look like? Okay, they are not having the full curtain wall, but is having the continuous window like this in order to lit up. And even the top parts of the windows, it also comes with the clear stories of the window in order to lit up the further ends or even the corridor itself. Okay, so having a reflectors as well at the light shelf to reflect in the light into the interiors. So the daylight strategy with window design, this is a summaries that according to the Eggins and the Elgis in 2002, minimizing the exterior obstruction, which may block amounts of the light that can be seen by the task, which is the usage of the ledge itself. So for these parts, once you're having the ledge, okay, or the overhang, you can get the dominant skylight, which is the diffuse light resource here. And from the ground, you will get the reflected light. So if you having curtain wall, you are going to get all the glaze off, okay, because it's inducing all the lighting, regardless it's diffuse, it's direct, or reflected light. So the designs of the height, sill height of the window is important here. So what the author suggests, this is D, okay, the depth of the building. Do not exceeding 2.5 H, okay, the height of the window for the unilateral uniform daylighting. Then use the high window locations and sloped ceilings. They use sloped ceiling because when it's being reflected in, the sloped ceiling can help you to reflect further in. So sheds the direct views of the sky and maximizing the ceiling heights and use the high reflectance surfaces, okay, in order to allow you to have a brightest environment. Okay, that is about window. So next, I will talk a little bit about the skylight, which most of the student like, especially when you're having an interesting design of your rooftop. Okay, so for the skylight wise, sometimes it's also called a roof light. It's a light transmitting structure. Okay, with this you can get the direct light. That's from all of the parts of the roof space. Okay, you can see that these are the ratios in between the floor options as well as the light. I will talk more later. Okay, we have three types of the roof lights. One is a skylight, which is perpendicular to the sky. It's not suitable for the office, but it's acceptable for the public spaces. How about the sawtooth light? So usually we use this as the offices. It's for diffuse light only. And it's acceptable for the officer space because it's not direct and it's okay for the public spaces. For the roof monitor, we get the diffuse light only. Okay, this is good as well. It's similar to the sawtooth roof. You only want the light that we get from the side, but not direct light. So you can use it for the office and public spaces. Okay, why the skylight is suitable for the public spaces? Because in the public spaces, usually the ceiling will be high and we can make it for the semi-open spaces, which come with the natural ventilation. So even though it's a skylight, but it's okay, but because the wind can blow, can reducing, okay, the impacts of the heat gain. Okay, if you put it in the enclosed space, the heat will trap here, and at the end, you need a high cooling rod to cool down the environment. That's why it's acceptable for the public spaces if you want to use the skylight here. Recommended daylight factor, okay, for the atrium spaces is 1 to 6%. Or yeah, so 1% daylight factor is equivalent, is the same brightness as an office spaces. Okay, usually if you refer to MS 1525, you will say that the minimum daylight factor that we get is 1% to maximum 3.5%. So that is the range that is being acceptable. So 6% daylight factor, where 50% of the daytime hours, the LUTs is above 2000 from the diffuse daylight. So you can see that 2000 is exceeding the acceptable LUTs that we need. So max is 2000. More than that will be not acceptable anymore. So even in your office or your classroom, what you need is only 3000 to 500. So compared to 2000, it's much more further and a lot. So we don't try not to have this. I mean, 6% of the daylight factor is too huge. The way too huge. So 4% of the daylight factor, with 0% of the hour, none, the LUTs level is above 2000. So 1 to 4, or we can say 3.5, is actually the recommended one. Okay. So low rise atrium, the 2-story height with the admitter. Once we're having a large roofing like this, you give this one, you can serve it as your rule of thumb. So trying to measure the areas of your roofing. So if you want to design the roofing and you want to get the sufficient daylight factor, so you only apply 5% of skylight out of the overall roof. Only this is a large roof. If there's a small roof, 5% out of the 8 times 8 meters, okay, or 60 meters squares. So you can get 2% of the daylight factor, which is still okay, considerable. 20% of the skylight for the small roof is too high already. You are going to get the heat gain here. Okay, so this one will be helpful for you when you want to design the building with 2-story building. So if you have a 5-story or 5 floors, like 20-meter height, so these are the recommended the rules of thumb for you to use. Okay, as you can see from the pictures here. So for high rise, okay, 40% of the skylight is equivalent to 1 daylight factor. Why? Why become like this? Because of the deep plan. High rise, okay, is tall. That's why the further it going up, okay, or going down itself, you're going to having a lesser daylight factor. So the low rise, okay, that's why for the low rise wise, roof is important. For the high rise wise, the wall is important. So if you designing high rise, you have to consider where about your wall, your window, okay? Then if you designing for the low rise or mid rise, okay, you are going to look into your roof. So your roof design will be critical here, okay? So clerestory is like the side window at the top. It's a high section of the wall that contains window above the eye level. So you can see these are the the rules of thumb. Okay, if you're having a long span like this, okay, you can subdividing the length of your the sections of your roofing into 3 sections according to the recommended one. So if you having 2 sides of the clerestory, this one become the atrium, and this is the sawtooth roof. Okay. Okay, now next will be the sums of the samples of the case study by my previous students. Okay, so in order for you guys to understand, probably like during the break, rayas or whatever, you can go and visit around. Okay, if you have a visit to some of the building like PAM buildings and so forth, you can trying to check. Okay, let's say bring in your lux meter, the portable one, or you can even get the floor plan and put in the simulation and trying to understand whether the design, what is the challenges, the shortcomings, or maybe the advantages of it. So this is a Ara Damansara Mosque. Okay, you can see the buildings will be how it looks like, and it get the GBI Gold certifications here, the second highest level. The highest level is platinum. Okay, this one I don't want to go through again. So you have a look at that. So this is how the mosque look like. So in terms of the orientations and in terms of the design, you can see they're having a double wall. Okay, one is having the louvers and with a huge roof. So the track marks of our tropical design is actually the umbrella roof. Okay, like a rain tree. That will be the ideal one. So imagine you are high under the tree, you feel breezy, you feel good, okay, in terms of the daylighting wise, you're also getting enough, but not too hot, okay, because umbrella is our kinds of like trademark. So you can design and work towards that direction. Having a big umbrellas like UTS, right, in Cebu, or Petronas by Norman Foster, the UTP. Okay, they are having a similar design concept. So you can have a look at that as your precedent studies. So this is also the same. Typical, we always encourage students to go for big roof like this one, because it can protect you from direct sunlight. But if you're having a big roof like this, yeah, the issue is the center area, the praying hole. It will going to be dark. It's not sufficient for you to get the light from the side. Hence, the designer get in one of the atriums at the center. Okay, so these are the sketches, and students, in order for them to understand about how the buildings work, you can try yourself, get one of the building and cut a section. Then you will know that how's the lightings work. Okay, in terms of this, you can see the praying hall. With this, he put in the one of the shades underneath of the skylight in order to shed off the light, or filter off the direct light, but in the same time, this allow the ventilation, the heat to get out, the going out from the upper part of the building. But for sure, you still can see the ventilators around the mechanical size. So these are the some sketches. Okay, so you can present these kinds of these sketches during your assignments or the progressive quick. So passive design, sun shading devices. So according to MS 1525, best orientation is in the climatic zone near the equators or tropical climate is actually the long directional axis of the building, which facing the north and the south. So you have to make sure the axial the lines of your building. Okay, you should have longer facades on the north south, but reducing the facade amount at the east and the west. Okay, so don't give a big or long wall along the east or the west orientation. That will inviting a lot of heat. Then the other one is overhang. Okay, so comparative analysis. So through the SketchUp and the observations of the shadow, so we can know that how's the external screens function. Okay, so these are the techniques after you have wrapped up. So you guys can do something like that for your project later in order to give in-depth ideas or the illustrations. Okay, how it's going to be look like before you run your simulation. Okay, so for your simulations, so this group of students, they use the Velux to run 3 types of the simulation. But actual fact, I think it's not necessary to have luminance, but they are rugged enough so that they come up with these 3. Okay, you can compare. So for the simulations wise, daylight only, so you can choose March. You can have out of 4, you can choose 3. Either it's March, June, or December, or June, September, or December. Okay, why we choose out of the whole year, 365 years, why we need only 3 days? Okay, because the 4 or 3 design days that we have it here could actually representing the critical the days within one whole year. I'm sure that you learn this right in your the classes that have been given by your lecturers in the subject. So that one you have to remember. Design days is important for the environmental studies. Okay, so instead of like simulate 365 times, you only need to simulate 3 times, but each days you have 3 hours, okay, to representing the whole year. So since they are doing the prayer hall or maybe scholar agama and so forth, so the time that they choose is actually the time that more people coming in, the peaks hours. Okay, if you're doing schools, day schools, for example, you might start from 8, then 10, and maybe 1. Compared to office. Office, the time that you get might coming start from 9, then you use 12 o'clock, then end at 3 o'clock. 5 o'clock no need already because people going back already, so it's not critical anymore. So you design this, and the time that you choose have to be logic and make sense, and it have to be related to the types of the building that you're going to design. Okay, so these are about the passive design. You can have a look at that. I'm not going to you can see how they explains about the shadow studies and different times, and how's the building components going to give the impacts of it. Okay, so yeah, the next one will be design tools or the methods which you are going to take notes, and you're going to use it for your next assignment later. So in design tools, typically we have two. One is the manual tables and chart. If you don't have any software, so you only have your plans, you can use the manual table and charts, okay, by using your protectors in order to get in the sunlight, sun path, as well as the azimuth of the tropical climate sun, to know that whether the window that you design is achieving the maximums or maybe excessive or minimum or less. So the other one, computer simulation, will give you the solution. You just need to draw the plans either from the SketchUp or from Revit or other software and import into it, and you can run the simulation. Software will tell you whether it's sufficient or not. So Velux visualization, the lighting visualization will be one of it. You can get for free. Okay. If you are in front of the computer now, right, not handphone, you can type in Google Velux daylight visualization, then download it. Okay, while I'm giving a talk, maybe, or later also can. Then Dilux or Relux artificial daylighting will be another one. This is actually comes with the artificial lighting. So these two software is actually constructed or contributed by all the luminous manufacturers like Philips, Osram, okay, or other brands, okay. Those who are the manufacturer that build the lamp or lights, okay, they contribute and they invest the money to construct this daylight and Velux software, okay. So if you want to do this, you can there's a lot of the tutorials in the YouTube. You can have a look. Okay. Velux is actually constructed, or the software constructed and invest by the window manufacturer. That's why he come up with this software. Okay. So Radiance is one of the general, useful, accurate, and general software that used by most of the researchers to study about the daylighting. So this is like an engine. It can be standalone, or some of it you can find out is integrated together with other software, like for example the design builders. Okay, they're having this as a plugin. Then SketchUp, they're also having this. Okay, you can download for free, or even you want to use Radiance itself, you can download from the website. You can get for free as well. But design builder you need to pay. IES you need to pay. They just bring in the engine of the Radiance as part of their product. Okay, so means that that is different. If just Radiance itself, I think it's free. Velux is free, Dilux is free, Velux is free. So you can see that what does it mean? Okay, you have the legends here, right? The red color basically means the maximum, the red. Okay, the blues or the green color, blue is low, green is sufficient. Okay, just nice. Okay, but you still can adjusting the legend, okay, in the simulation software later. Okay. So with the pictures that you give, straight away we can see whether the daylighting performance or daylight factors in the room itself is it excessive or not. Okay, so that's what is the advantage of the software. Okay, so this is important. Simulations of the MS1525 now is go to 2019 already, but I think 14 still can be applicable. Okay, so for the simulation software you want to do for daylight factor, make sure you set the settings to overcast sky. Okay, and for the glare simulations, you have to make sure the reflectance values of the surface to be set into this. I will show it later. Okay, like for example, I want to use a brick plaster. I mean the material is just a brick. with plaster, white plaster. So you can set it to 0.7, okay, and others were having a different reflectance values. And this slide, 60 is very important, so you have to remember this. So when you're doing and showing your boards in the final what is that called, presentation, you have to show that, because or else we will not sure whether the result that you get is according to which metric or which standards. Since this is Malaysian standard, so we abide with this one. Okay, so just now I keep mentioning 1.0 to 3.5, right? So you have to remember this number. So make sure when you run your simulation, you got this percentage on your floor plan, the light factor percentage. So lighting, why? If you get this result, we can assure in terms of the lighting wise is acceptable, the result. And in terms of the glare, it's okay, comfortable, not that harsh. And comfortable, thermal comfort wise is also good. Means that you no need to use excessive or high cooling load for your room. Hence, by this, you have already tell us that your designs of your building is good in terms of light, in terms of the glare, in terms of the thermal comfort. Okay, in this case, for your level, you no need to simulate further for the thermal comfort anymore. If you are designing, you are looking into the daylight factors here. Okay, so I suggest all the students, you have to simulate 2 sets for every three for your design. So you just need to pick one of the spaces and simulate and make sure you have more than 60% of your spaces is fall within 1.0 to 3.5%. Then you will know that that room is good in terms of lighting, glare, and thermal comfort. Okay, so sky conditions, as I mentioned, if you simulate for illuminance, okay, you have to set it as an intermediate. If you go for daylight factor, you have to set to overcast sky. Okay, these are two different, because daylight factor is always look into the worst case scenarios. So when you are designing for classroom, let's say, you want to know that the lux, how good is the lux, is it? You refer to table 10, recommended average illuminance level. Okay, so for daylight factor is table 1.A, 1A. For the illuminance is table 10. Okay, like let's say I am designing a architect office. Okay, what is the recommended lux for me? So you can refer here is 300 to 400 lux. Okay, so the coloring rendering index, this one is from the artificial lighting, will be 85. Okay, but in this case we are just looking into the natural lighting, day lighting. So this will be your benchmark. If you're designing office, shops, stores, okay, also the same, 300 to 400. Okay, but for the infrequent reading and writing, like what I mentioned, maybe occasional spaces, 200 is sufficient. And other lah, okay, you can look into this. So rules of thumb. So we want to make sure the designer employ the begins with the identification of the recommended illuminance value. So you have to refer to this. And dividing the recommended internal illuminance by external illuminance leaves effectively a daylight factor magnitude. So which means that you have to know and get the correct outdoor light first. Okay. Then a person that can use the following rules of thumb to size the window. Daylight factor average is 0.2 times the glazing areas divided by the total floor area. Okay, if you haven't come up with, with the solution, in terms of the simulation first, this is what you can try to get. So to estimate whether you get sufficient lighting or not, minimum has to be 0.1 times glazing area divided by floor area. So remaining slide will be just pictures. I will just showing you how the website they are designing or translating the design for. Okay, like this is actually parts of the useful like we have big balconies, right? Then having surrounding. But in this this is so called the masrabia, okay, in the Arab Saudis and the Middle East country. Okay, there is actually looks like balcony, but it comes with all the louvers or interesting uh, crafting and so forth on the facade of it. It's not only just for aesthetic, but it's to filtering of the light. So the architect used it wisely to translating the design into the building and for the offices. Okay, so this is suitable for the Middle East, but in Malaysia we have to use it in other way around. Okay, petting farm, yeah, bifold windows itself. He utilizing the foldables windows, sorry, the building facade in order to get in filtered light, but in the same time, it's allowed the operable window allows the views as well as the ventilations to be achieved here. This one you can just go over, okay, with passport. National Library of Singapore. You just buy the bus ticket straight away going to the Bugis Junction, just opposite the Bugis Junction, the Queenstown. Okay, so that Queensland, sorry, that will be the National Library. It's free. You can go over there. Okay, in order to experience our Master of Architect Ken Yang. Nice. He's going to come to UTM, right? Yeah. So yeah, this is his design. You see how he wisely applying the shading devices together with the windows here, okay, in order to get insufficient lighting. And Foster and Partners, okay, he designing creatively utilizing the shading devices and stack it up and make it into the shapes like the diagonals or kinds of the shading overhangs, okay, in order to make it into the shading devices for the building. Okay, the Targo architects using this designing building facade by the folded facade. So this won't prevent you having a good view, but in the same time it can prevent the direct sunlight. So it has to be all depending on where your orientations of the building is. Probably you can see that the folded side will be facing perpendicular to this direction, right? So most probably this will be the direction for the west orientation. Okay, so you can tilt and try it yourself with the simulation software. Yeah, this one Durian, Singapore Esplanade, Theatres by the Bay. You can just buy a bus ticket and go over and have a look at this. Yeah, why people say we cannot have skylight? Okay, in it's a tables in tropical climate. Is it true? Not really, right? But if as long as you're having a good solution like this one, then you can have an interesting design, and this becomes an iconic building already in Singapore. Okay, combinations of the skylight as well as the sharp edges of the shading devices. So this could be interesting. So you guys can look into that, the galleries of the cube houses. Yeah, somehow, for example, you come up with an ideas, you want to recycle back the materials on the site, or maybe the town areas of your locations, okay, maybe the cities that you design your building, it comes with a lot of the unused waste of the tiles. So you can trying to get in. Like Kengo Kuma is one of the master of architect. He like to go and observe, okay, see is there anything that he can use around the culture that he can adapt into the building. And at the end, it's simple building, but it's a trademark, it's an iconic building, just by utilizing a local materials, which giving an identity. Okay, I think everyone like technical, the rotationals or kind of the shading devices, so it can addressing the different orientation. Okay, but somehow you have to address it correctly. So don't just giving one solution for all the problems. Okay, so that is also one of the solution, but you have to justify it clearly. And wind responsive dynamic facade. Okay, it will be one of the interactive. In the same time, it becomes one of the building the dynamic buildings facade as well for the and giving it an identity in the same time. So the other one is Albao Towers in UAE. So similar to our Durian in Singapore. So this is also one of the the skylight or kind of the curtain wall. Sorry, curtain wall that covered with all the skins with the automated the rotational the shading devices. So maybe as simple as it is, you might not go into either of it. You can consider about the punch window. So box up will be one of it. Because box up is basically look like the overhang, right? It can shed away from the direct sunlight. So this can be considered. And one of the my previous project in my ex-office in Kuching. So it's creatively utilizing the Van blocks, okay? And you just have to play around with the slabs, okay? And stack up the, what is that called, the Van block, and can get an interesting facade, okay? So things can be simple, no need to be expensive, can be economical, can be affordable, but it's interesting anyway. Okay, so trying to look more into that in order to designing an interesting building facade. Yeah, this could be also one of it, the skins. Okay, you can designing like that, and it can comes together with the greeneries that can climb around. Okay, so you can consider, yeah, a lot more. And this is one of the interesting one. I like this because usually student will like to put your shading, I mean the windows that perpendicular to your sun. But with this, okay, you can have a nice facade that facing the west. But at the same time, we can prevent the direct sunlight to come into your building. Okay, what you get is just the diffuse lighting. And this one is also one of the schemes, okay, you can relate. Okay, so these are all about some samples that you can consider for your design for the shading devices. And now you can go into this one, Velux Daylight Visualization. It's a software that you can download from here. So yeah, at first you can look through this. I'm not going to read through, but I will sum up a bit. You can use SketchUp because the Velux Daylight Visualization software can actually accept and read the SKP, which is a SketchUp file. So you don't need to have a very complicated or export to OBJ or whatever. You just can use the SketchUp file or Revit. Yeah, also can use that as well, no issue. So I have listed down all the the steps itself for you to refer, but later on I will show you yeah, one time. So with that, I mean in the SketchUp wise, you don't need to build a complicated kind of the form. Whatever that space you need to test, okay, like for example classroom, you just model the classroom. And I will advise you to do a single layers of the space instead of like double layer. For example, usually you do SketchUp, right? You always designing or you always model it with thickness. But with this, you don't need to consider about the thickness. You just have to do a box, put it up. Let's say there's a room. Okay, then put your windows, okay, and the roof itself that you want. Because we are not simulating the temperatures. We are not simulating about the thermal comfort, the U value. No, we are not doing that. We are just looking the impacts of the daylight to the interior environment. So temperature is out, is not within our scope. So you don't need to worry about that. Hence, the thickness of the model is not important. Okay, here. Then the other one is the colors, okay, of these the materials. Okay, you can assign because when you export it into the software, you are going to assign accordingly. Then only you set the cameras and you simulate. Okay, as simple as this. I will show you later. Now I just giving a quick intro lah. This one I just skip because it's the same as what I mentioned. Okay, yeah, this is the result, the isolux. Okay, you have to identify, let's say if you draw out the model inside the software itself, okay, it can actually help you to zone out. Like if you want to straight away going into your design, you can just do one zone first. No need to come up with the full building. Okay, first just use one space, classroom, the 4 walls will do. Okay, these are why I'm showing this like a rendering software, right? But because this will be useful when you comes to your building material, especially when you want to assign your own materials. you can refer. Okay, the most plastic or non-metallic have the specularity, this is the keywords, of 0 to 0.1. Metallic will be 0.8 to almost 1. Okay, it's greater. Plastic is like non-reflective, but metallic is high reflective value. So both plastic and metallic surface rarely exceed of the roughness of 0.2. Okay, because other than specularity, the software will ask you about your roughness of the surface. So you have to pick and apply. Okay, this is S is specularity, R is the roughness. So you can see that which material that you are using, they have a graphic and the values, you can key in accordingly. So this is the specularity, how's the factors of the diffuse reflections that you see. If you see it's like carbo, you know, some kinds of like blurring a bit, means that the specularity is 0. If high reflective, means that it will reflect direct the beams from the sun, okay, or the surrounding. You are going to give a very sharp and directional the lights coming reflected from the surface. So that one we call the high specularities. So this is a rough plastic which is not reflecting at all until this like aluminum, right, or maybe some of the metallic surface. So this is the high specularities. Okay, yeah, the rules of thumb, I have give you everything, so you can check from my slide later when you want to run a simulation. Reflectance for the floor usually is 20% or 0.2, wall 50, ceiling 70, roughness for the floor will be 0.2, ceiling is 0.03, specularity for the wall and the ceiling will be the same, 0.03. If you want it to be a special materials, you can check from here. Okay, I've given it to you. You can just key accordingly. Okay, so these are the sums of the samples. So this IES, this one is of international standards, like MS, but this is international. So this is what they recommended for a typical offices. So you can see the ceiling finishes should be 80 to 90. With good reflected, high reflected ceiling, then you get the better illuminance in the interior. So I say, if your office, don't paint it black unless you want to have a dim condition, that will be your different story. For normal office, usually it's white and high reflectance value. So same goes to the wall, furnitures, and so forth. It has its reflectance value, but getting lowers. Okay, so this table could be your references. You have to refer to this when you come up with your simulation. If not mistaken, you still have project 1C, right? Or else maybe project 3, okay? Or maybe at the final, you having come up with your simulation. You can follow this table and fit in accordingly. Okay, you should come up this at least 2 or 3. This is just one set of it. You show the sections of the window, let's say the best case study. Okay, then you put the times, you can show the legends here, and then this is the daylight factor. So for 21st of March at 9 a.m., after you simulate, show the pictures here, the floor plans that you have simulated, and tell us what is the average value, or even the point value also can. Or 12 and 3 o'clock, you fit in accordingly. And illuminance, yeah, you have to run 2 sets. One set is not sufficient. In order for you to know whether the environment is suitable and sufficient for readings, studyings, and so forth, you have to run illuminance as well, not only just the ratio of the daylight factor. Okay, so show the plans and shows the perspective and show the results. Okay, this is how it looks like. Okay, how you get the point from the point result? You can right click. Once you have run the simulation, you can right click at the plans. It will give you the values. So you can quickly type the values into the Excel and run a graph, or you can type it here. Okay, value are all the places that you can type in, and can turn it into a graph. Okay, with the series. Yeah, this is what our expectation. Probably I think still be the same. Last time I used to teach second year as well. And this is one of the assignments that students have to produce in assignment 1C. So they take one of the site, one of the space in their building, then they change, let's say, the facade of the building. You can see external, this is how it looks like. Internal is all filled with glass. So he simulate the 21st March, June, either March or September, but this student are very hardworking. He put 4, but the result will be the same for the March and the September. Then he analyzed it and plot it into the graph. He tell us which one of the result and in terms of the time or the days itself having the high performance and which one having the lowest one. And it helps you, this analysis helps you to determine which typologies were having the better results or better daylighting throughout a day. For sure, you wouldn't get 100% good result. Means that you wouldn't get 100% 1.0 to 3.5 throughout the days. Okay, because sometimes you are raining, you know, sometimes the sun angle is low, sometimes it's gloomy days, but you choose the one that actually can give you higher percentage out of the full days. Okay, as it is. Then that one can be bring over to your final assessment later. Okay, so these are one of the example as well. Okay, that you can see. Okay, that's the ends of the presentation. So any question before I move on to the demonstrations of the Velux? No question. Everyone is okay? Okay, probably you are still digesting. It's okay. Let me show you the software. Okay. Um, Velux, daylight visualizer. Okay. Okay, you look at this one, Velux, daylight visualizers. Click at this one. Okay, there's a lots of the apa tu, the YouTube lah. You can learn. Okay, this one for us to download. Okay, so for sure you have to key in your name, blah 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 blah. All this accept, then you can download directly. Okay, yeah, this is how it looks like now. It has been updated until 3.1. Last time I'm still using version 2. Now it's up to 3.1. There are some differences or the improvement have been done by the manufacturer. So you can have a look what is that. Okay, it's a minor one, but still the same. So yeah, I will show you how I design, how I use this software. Okay, at first you going to the, once you have download, share. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. Yeah, once you click in, you are going to see this. Okay, new projects, open projects, import projects, and so forth. Okay, I show you 2 times, twice. One is how you start from scratch from this software. Okay, I can use new project. Okay, what first you have to determine the grid spacing here. So 1000 means 1 meter lah. One petak, one kotak here, box here is means 1 meters. Click OK. Okay, then you can start to draw. You can see at the bottom here. Okay, the bottom is the buttons for you to draw as well as do the setting. And the right side will be the tutorial. So everything is very straightforward and clear. If you're not sure what to use, you can read this. So he will tell you step by step. So first, you set outer wall first. Okay, I drag. Okay, 5 meter. Drag. Okay, like this. Then this is defining my wall. Okay, the building of mine. So you can left click and try and zoom in or see that how's the building look like. So you can set the wall length because this is a preset, so never mind, you can just keep whatever it is. So if your wall length is not that deep, you can change it to the typical one. The wall height, if 3 meter, you can set it higher, it's up to you. And wall thickness, Okay, maybe 150. Okay. Right? Yeah. So once you have done this, okay, let's say I want to have an internal partition. I can check the second button, the wall length or how the length it is. So it will adjust accordingly. You can see the numbers is changed according when I drag it through 1000, 2000, 3000 mm. So you want to set the inner walls, the partition, I can set it myself. Okay, then next one will be the custom object. Okay, if you want to have a special object here, you can still put it in. Like for example, you want to add a box, you just click on it, okay, and place accordingly. Okay, but this one is not typical, not critical. It's not necessary you have to use this. Okay. Right click, so this become a box. So you see there's a box inside my building. Okay. But I don't want this, so I just delete off. Too many, sorry. Okay, I think just leave it first, never mind. So you can explore more. So next, all the buttons at the top is actually the guides for you to construct your model. So next, after we are constructing the wall, we go to the roof. So you can select for the flat roof or one slot, okay, or two slot. Okay, is it come with overhang or not? Okay, you can check it here. Dimensions, height above the floor. Okay, yeah. Let's say I want to have a flat roof. Okay, all right. Then yeah, next one, I shall get my roof product because Velux is actually the manufacturer for the window, right? So he will give you all their product. You can choose and give the size. Okay, let's say this is the roof product. So yes, Alia, are you trying to ask some questions? Okay, all right. Okay, so next, let us having windows. You can designing your windows. You can choose the window size and linings of the properties. Yes, Alia, is there any question? Okay, may I proceed? Okay, all right. Yeah. So next will be windows. Let's say I choose the facade. Okay, so you have to make sure it's green. Huh? If red means that you cannot, it's not as accessible. You cannot place that area. Then click again. Okay, the types of the window that you want, then you place it. Red means overlapping and cannot be placed there. Okay, so I try a few more. Okay, then I just add in accordingly. I leave it to you. That one, this one, I don't want to explore more. So if you want to have, okay, this is about the external wall. So inner windows opening. Yeah, okay, you can put inside the partitions. Okay, add in the windows. Okay, now, okay, I'm satisfied. Let's say this is my building, my rooms with all these window and skylight. So now I want to go to the next tab at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have finished number 4. So this very straightforward. You can choose if you want to just trial first, you can go for Singapore. We don't have Malaysia, sadly to say, but the nearest to us is actually the Singapore. Or if you know the location, you can set the longitudinal. You can go to custom, so you can set the exact locations of it. Okay. So in this case, I show you the one as preset first. Singapore. Okay. Then this one you can see the north arrow again. So you can adjust accordingly. Your building orientation would be. And the other one is even more accurate. Is weather. So you can import the EPW file, especially the weather file, from the website, the free website. Okay. I'll show you later. Okay. So let's say you already have the file. You can click import. Then you go to the locations of the file the folder that you save your file. Let's say this one is the EPW file that I save and I download from Kuala Lumpur. I can open, then I can input in, then can see that it's already here. All right. So this first, so you choose either one that you want to go for your weather data file. Okay, next is to determine the material. So as the presets, you have floor. You can choose the floor materials. Is it a carpet? Is it linoleums, wooden floors, or you can even user define it. I have given you all the numbers, right? The roughness and the specularities, right? According to the material. So you can set it yourself if you want to determine, or else we can choose from here, okay, as a typical one. And can even change your color, okay, purple color, whatever color that you like, okay, and click OK. Then next will be ceiling, okay. So it's same methods, but I want to expedite the process, so I just simply choose one. Wall, then goes to this, I choose matte. Okay, roof product, okay, wood, let's say. Facade product, maybe wood as well, and custom object, okay. The one that the box that I draw, I want it to be the semi-gloss, let's say, okay. Then you have finalized all the materials. So make sure you set all the materials right, or else it will give you a different simulation result. Okay, for furnitures, for the draw in or preset, you can add in whatever that you like, just like you're playing the SimCity. Okay, you're playing games. Okay, I want to put my tables here. I want to have what you want to have, office. Okay, I want to have this table. I put it here. Okay, then I want whichever meeting desk or schools, or maybe this one. Okay, I put it here. Let's say lah, and whatsoever lah. So you guys can put it by yourself. If you use SketchUp, there is no longer this function because they assume that you put it inside the SketchUp already. Okay, but I think not necessary, or else it's going to be very heavy when you run your simulation. Okay, now I just want to show you one time only. Okay, once you have put your furnitures, you want to set your camera. Okay, so remember the view height have to be 850 or 750. Okay, don't put 0. This is preset already. Then you can set the areas. Okay, means that this area is going to be the simulated area. It's not exceeding, but it's within the what is that called, the wall boundary. Okay. Cross sections. Okay, you can have a look here. You can adjust the section line you have for perspective. Let's say you want to simulate the luminance, or even luminance also you want to show us the perspective other than plans, you can set it here. So the locations of the cameras, okay, then you check this, have a look, and this is the height, okay, of your cameras. Okay, you can add the cameras, just like what you have done for your SketchUp. Okay, but I want to simulate plan view because plan view are more important compared to perspective. So I show this first. The rest you just go and have fun yourself after this lecture input. So render, still images, okay, illuminance. Okay, let's say I try daylight factor first. You see daylight factor, you don't need to choose, look at the bottom left. You don't need to choose the time of the year. But if you go for illuminance, you need to choose the time, the date and the time. Okay, so daylight factor only need to run satu kali sahaja, once time. Okay, no need to run every design day. And you can try annual simulation. This one will give you the other result in the whole year, like uniform daylight index, okay, the glare index and more, but it will be in the whole year. But now, because I tried before, it's going to take me hours, so I'm not going to show here. You go and have fun yourself. So I just showing still image here. Okay. Render. Okay, you start to render, and this maybe takes you a few minutes in order for you to run this. So it's simulating the sensor points. So when you run this, trying to go for law first, or else it's going to take years, okay, or decades for you to finish off your simulation. Unless you're having a supercomputer, that will be different story. Okay, my computer is not supercomputer, so yeah, I have to go for very low, very simple, very quick one. Okay, in order for you to yeah, that one. So I show one, and I will tell you how you're going to get the result. So from here, you have ideas how to get it ready. Then you can have fun yourself during the school holidays. Okay, yeah. Can you see this? Yeah, this will be a pop-up for your simulation result. Okay, just now it's processing, but now you can see the camera, the percentage is running. So you have a legend here. You have to crop this legend. You see, the recommended one is 1.0 to 3.5, right? So you make sure your result is fall within the center. So some of the students, we will set your tips at 5. So if you set is at like this, your maximum result or the optimal result will be red everywhere. So make sure the recommended result is fall within the center area, okay, the region. Then give it more gaps, okay, for the maximum and minimum. Okay, so now it's 74, 81, 87. So until it's reached hundreds. Okay, done. So you can choose either go for isolat. Okay, you can see this is the results of it. Yeah, basically, you can choose different types of the colors. Is it 2 colors like this? Or radiance? Use the purple tones or gamma scale or visualizers. Okay, so you see there is no red colors, means that all our results are not exceeding, maximum will be green color, 4. Okay, if you think that it's not clear enough, you can adjust a bit. Maybe you set like 1.0 to 2 or maybe 5. Yeah, okay, 5, 0 to 5. So at least you can have a clearer results, which means that this area is actually around 5 or 3, or maybe 3.5 is considered acceptable. If you're not confident, you can right click, okay? Right click at either any areas that you want, so you will get the result. Just now I said a room recommended spaces will be 1.0 to 3.5, but you see at the center I only get 0.4. So this is fail. It's a fail scheme. Okay, so what should I do? Enlarging the window, enlarging for and I mean increasing the heights of your the ceiling height, the headroom, and many more that you can do. You can even put in the light shelf. Okay, if you have excessive light, you have window, the window is too huge, maybe you can add shading devices to cut down in order to get the daylight factor 1.0 to 3.5. So those nearby to the window is okay, 1.5, but those inside a deep plan is not okay because it's too low. It's almost unseen, but at least you get 1.0. Okay, so trying to explore on that. So it the result can give you by zone as well. Okay, you can click at the second tab. This is camera. So you can see if I adjust the legend, it will adjust accordingly. So you have to give an appropriate legend. So don't give too huge the gap itself or too low. Let's say if you see I put maximum as 2, the whole thing will become red. So don't bluff your lecturers, with this. Some of the students, they will say, oh, not right enough, so I'm trying to play with this and you type this one. So we can't see. So we thought the result is okay. But we will ask you, what is the result it is. So we have to put this as well. Okay, then we will know that actually like 5 and you have a sufficient daylight here. Okay, so that is about the first parts of it. So now I'm going to show you the second part that will be start from the SketchUp. but for sure you still can use, like for example, the Revit, but I will use SketchUp to show first. New project, I start from scratch. So I show you from SketchUp first. SketchUp application. Okay. Let's say this is my building. Looks cute, right? Small. Then what you need to do is you form a single layer, you see single layer, not double, single. All are single. Even my window is also single, don't have any ledges. Okay, is for the preliminary studies. Okay, you use this. So the color is the color code. As long as you can recognize, you know, this green color is representing what. Okay, the purple color representing what, and so forth. Then you are good to go. Okay, so let's say I want to use this as my building. Then file, save as. Yeah. So remember, in this case, go for the lowest level, SketchUp version 8. Don't go for 2019 because software of Velux is still a little bit primitive and sometimes it cannot detect. So give them a lower and basic version. Save. Okay, save. All right, now I get back to my Velux. Okay, so now, yeah, you see this new, right? Okay, once you choose this, you go to import project. Okay, so you can see that you can go for object, SketchUp, DWG, DSF, or IFC. This is a Revit model, beam model. So if you're using beam, you choose this one. Okay, make sure you export to IFC first. Now I'm using SketchUp, so I use SKP. So I click open. Yeah, you can see that at the top right, just now we have add, now become 5 buttons only because he knows that you use your own model now. Okay, then this is my model. Is it the same as the SketchUp? Yeah, I have the green color, I have the purple color, and so forth. Okay, so first you have to make sure, I think this one is less function, but just you have to make sure the scales, units of the model that you import is accurate lah. So in order for me to reconfirm back, I click scale, unit, I click from left to right. Click, drag, okay, 6 meter, yeah, correct. Then surface, next step. Okay, just now I have import color F8, it's green color. So you have to remember what is color F08 is. So maybe that is, you can set it as an external wall, or maybe I select as a stone, okay. If you don't want, you can use user define. You choose your own texture and you adjust your own specularity based on what I have given. Or maybe you can search online as well. Especially those who are expert in using a rendering, like for example, the rendering software like that you usually use. Okay. V-Ray, kind of that thing, then you will know better than me in this case. Okay, then color J08, purple. Oh, I know that is carpet. So I put fabric lah. In this case, carpet number 3. If I don't want, I can set the color myself and I change the specularity and roughness by myself as well. Okay, blah blah blah. The rest also the same. The most important one is your window, the glazing. Okay, so window is a must change thing. Okay, I go for glass surface. Okay, so you can go for 76. Okay, 79%. Okay, the maximum won't be 100%. There is no such as 100% glazing. Very rare, but I think maximum will be like around 80. Okay, like the clear glass. If you are using a good glazing, like according to GBI, right, it can go like tinted, double glazing. Those could be up to 30%. Okay, means that the light diffuser will be lesser. Less light coming in means that less heat coming in as well. But in this case, I'm showing you the clear single pane glass, a single layers only. So 76%. Okay, you can use the references maybe from if you want to have an accurate one, trying to ask from like RGR or those glass suppliers, they will give you a checklist or some kinds of the standards or properties of the glazing. Then you can set accordingly. Or if you just want to go for typical one, you can just set to 76% transmittance values. Okay. Yeah. All right. Then now I set my glass and my materials wise. Then I go to location. Okay. Same thing. So now I go for Singapore. Let's say if you want to test first. Okay, Singapore. So let's say this one I have to click unclick first. Then I adjust this. Okay. Yeah. My north point. So you can see that a little bit of the flickerings of the light when I change the north point at the right side. Then camera, plan view. Okay. Maybe 800. Okay. Then you set areas. Okay. Yeah. Maybe camera later lah. You can show it later by yourself. I just want to show the plan first. Let's say like this. Okay, now we are good to render. To image, maybe I want to share the, oh sorry, this is a perspective. So in order for you to go back, you have to click plan view. Then click back, go to render. Only you can choose daylight factor. Overcast sky, okay, then render. Okay, now you can see that, yeah, these are the results. Same thing, adjust accordingly. You can click the types of the color mapping. Then you go for ISO mapping, then right click at the result. I want to show you how to get the average result for the whole spaces. You just need to drag, okay, and release. Then you hover the mouse to the center, then it will give you the average result. Maybe I can do it now. I cannot. You have to wait until hundreds. So with this, I think you are good to go lah. After today's 2 hours input lectures, you can try to explore by yourself first, okay, and maybe you can try to simulate a simple space in your plans or buildings. Let's say this one. See, when I click drag, release, I hover my mouse, you can see what is the mean, the average daylight factor of this particular selected area. Medium, minimum point is what, and maximum is what. Okay, uniformities and even the quartiles of it, it will show you all the result of it here. Okay, but you can just show you the average, or you can click one point, especially at the centers or the settings area, to representing and plot it into a graph also can. Okay, so yeah, now I have done with my demonstration. I think I still leave OU one things, right? The location, how you're going to import your EPW. Okay, so I stop and I share the Google. I show you the Google. Okay, EPW file. Okay, you can see that ladybugs. If you want to get a more accurate file, okay, it gives you the whole world's weather station file. Okay, those who are doing thermal performance, you can download this one as well. Okay, and simulate. You can download lah from one building. Then you will get the EPW file. If you can't get this one, you can go for this one. Energy Plus weather data. Energy Plus. Okay, go to the last one, weather. Then you search Southern Pacific, Malaysia, but so far I only have 4. Okay, Kuching, Kuala Lumpur, Kota Baru, or Georgetown. Okay, or you for second year, I think not critical. You can choose Singapore, if your site is JB. Yeah, or else you can choose Kuala Lumpur, the nearby one. Okay, then you can put it somewhere, then import the EPW here. Okay, you can import your EPW. Yeah, here. Click here and trying to find the file. Okay, for your simulation letter lah. So have to make sure the file has to be EPW format. Velux, this one, EPW format. Okay, so it will appear here when you run the simulation. Okay, so yeah, with this, I think I end my the sessions. Hopefully you guys managed to grasp what I say today, even though it's 2 hours, but yeah, you have to try to digest it. Okay, thank you very much. Any question?
Okay.
Oh, okay. So means that you guys are okay with that. All right. So if you have any questions, maybe you can text me. I'm fine with that. Or maybe your seniors. I think almost all your seniors, the third year or master, they have used this software before. Okay, so you can learn from them, or also YouTube as well. Okay, there are a lot of it. All right. So yeah.
Okay, guys. No other question. Probably they're still digesting, like PC.
No worries, no worries.
100%.
Yeah, I'll give you the slides, everything. Okay, so they can get from there.
Yeah, if anything, I try to upload the recording as soon as possible, and I will send the link to your WhatsApp group. Okay.
All right.
I also pening. Okay, kita JQ also pening.
Yeah, within 2 hours, I think memang tak sempat lah, but that's why yeah, you have to try it out because it's a lecture input. That's why I prefer to record it so that you guys can record back lah. But not a very difficult software, so don't worry. You can get a lot of references even from YouTube as well.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. PC.
Thank you very much, yeah, Dr. Izik and all the second year lecturers and students for inviting me here. Okay, hopefully you guys learned something today lah. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, if anything, don't be shy to contact Dr. PC. Dr. PC is very friendly, very down to earth person. Okay, you can always contact him to ask about the Velux software. Okay, so
welcome.
Okay, so thank you very much, guys. So with this, I end the session. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Selamat Raya. All right. Bye bye.
Bye. All right.